Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This is the World That Is So Fucking Insane. We all want a do-over. I'm calling a do-over for this week. If anyone else wants to jump on the train with me, it's a do-over train. This week has been so fucked for just about everyone I know. It's like definitely calling for a do-over. Definitely. And we talk about technological shit. Holy crap, people's mics are unmuting and going off even right now. And technology is failing across the board yet again. And it's not just computer technology. It's like, I don't know how many people now, we had the conversation in the Unfuckers group this morning, how many people's cars have died this week? Or in the last, say, 2 weeks. Like, cars dying, tires deflating just by themselves randomly, car parts and cars that shouldn't have a problem, just all of a sudden having problems. Washing machines dying. I lost my washing machine this week. My best friend on the other side of the island, she lost her washing machine this week, just died. I had 2 other people who I chat with regularly. Their washing machines just up and cacked this weekend. Cell phones, apparently. Cell phones are on the breaking point, whether it's they're getting dropped, they're getting drowned, they're getting, I don't know, self-destructing from within, apparently. Hair dryers. Literally anything with technology in it is fucking failing this week. Wait, wasn't it supposed to be Mercury in retrograde that is the week that all the technology shit fails? And we're supposed to be out of Mercury retrograde. This week has been insane. And like my own personal life, every single day since Sunday, there has been something epic, panicked, gone wrong, where you have to all of a sudden go, oh my God, got to pull it together. We got to fix this. Today, I had an epic day of just like, literally, I'm so done. I'm so completely fucking done. Major issues came up for our family. Today, I was supposed to travel this weekend and found out that because we've had such a huge delay with getting Nick's work visa actually processed, like as in 7 months delay, our ID cards for our residency cards for Malta have expired. I'm supposed to travel this weekend, and I've been told that if I leave the country, they won't let me back in. So, like, literally, so all of you, please, I'm working on this as best I can to get this shit fixed, but I need all the best of intentions, people, because this has turned into one of the biggest epic clusterfucks. I have to travel this weekend because we have to go up to England to pick up my daughter's best friend. And if we can't do it, it means like her mom is going to lose like thousands of dollars in plane fare if we can't pick her up. So like this is like seriously this day of just what the fuck. So hold the energy, please, all of you. But it's been across the board. Like it seems like this week was a week, and for some people it started even last week. Pardon me. Yeah, I got my cough back. That it all of a sudden just decided to reappear this week as well after being clear for like 2 months. Internet failures across the board. It just failures everywhere. Everyone I've been talking to has just had things like where they've had either family members completely blow up, like lose their shit, friends, workmates, all of a sudden shit going nuts at work, where like, you know, sales are falling through or sales are blowing up, and absolutely crazy shit. So I was talking to Ann Callahan a little earlier, and I've been chatting with Randy Moggins, and Randy may even try to join us tonight if he can. Jeff can't because he's traveling at the moment, and I don't know if Ben is going to show up. It's kind of early in the morning. He may not be awake yet. we always talk about the macro and the micro. And that kind of almost mirror expression of stuff. And the one thing we were talking about was the volcano in Hawaii. And if we want to look at a macro, micro, cosmic expression of what seems to be taking place, that volcano that's going off in Hawaii right now, where the earthquakes are still going, it's been non-stop earthquakes for days now. And I'm not talking 3 or 4 earthquakes. I'm talking as in hundreds of earthquakes a day. Some of them are only 2-pointers, but a lot of them are in the 4s and the 5s. Lava vents coming up everywhere. The other big volcano now is all the lava is drained out and it's like running out everywhere apparently. So the one thing we've had several people say is, several reports have said, it's like, this is not people, a lot of people kind of, because Hawaii has an active volcano. It's kind of like Sicily with Mount Etna. They've got an active volcano. Oh, it's the, okay, volcanoes erupting. Okay, you don't think much about it. And they're saying this, what's going on in Hawaii right now is epic. It is never been seen before. What is happening right now in Hawaii has never, ever been seen before. So we're seeing this expression, if you will. And I love it. Some of the comments you guys are saying in here. Tracy said, "Oh, hold on, you guys are all, everyone's talking so fast." Cosmic venting. Lava as a lubricant. It's lubricating something. So we're looking at something, and then I'm looking at what seems to be going on in a lot of people's personal lives. And if it's not even you personally, it's the going on around you. As in, you're seeing the people in your family, really close friends, co-workers, etc., are blowing up, kind of and melting down, kind of like a volcano. And I was looking at it and like, are we looking at it? Is it the chicken and the egg thing? Is all the shit going off with us causing the volcano, or is it the volcano is an expression of what's energetically going on with us? Yes, JC, nerves are really tight right now. Even I'm seeing, even the people who are not experiencing this shit themselves. Ah, there you go, Mr. Benjamin Gross. It's so delightful of you to join us this morning, Ben. Are you awake? Even those who are maybe not experiencing it themselves, as in their own personal little bubble, they're watching it play out right in front of them with the people around them. Like I said, like family, friends, in their neighborhood. There is an epic level right now of something. And it honestly, to me, it feels like something shifted. Something in the last week did another shift. And everything has just gotten compacted. Almost like you've got, it's kind of like if someone took an epic 10-hour movie and then they gave it to the director and they crushed that 10-hour movie down into a 1-hour sitcom. That's what it feels like right now. Did that make sense? Was that a good analogy? It's as if literally everything has been compressed down. It's like almost like it's, I don't know. It's like we're at the end of the game, and therefore we got to get all the rest of the shit that we needed to experience. Well, we all got to do it now, but we're gonna do it all at the same time on the same day. That kind of shit. 100 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag. Fucking loved it. We actually watched a Mythbusters rerun where they actually did that just a little while ago. It was quite funny. A dark comic sitcom. Yeah. A dark cosmic comic sitcom is what it feels like. Yeah. Wayne, trust me, if I actually had some right now, I was joking with John before we came on that if it wasn't for, I would either have to maybe even smoke a joint, or I'm going to have to get out the gin. And I was real tempted to pull out the gin this afternoon, like really, really tempted. But I had children all around, so. Yeah, okay, Tracy, well said. Tracy just said, it's fairly calm for me personally, but it feels like I'm sitting in the eye of a megastorm. And that's what I mean. The people who I've spoken to who, in their own bubble, are not physically being affected by it, it is as if they're in the eye of the storm, because everywhere they look around them, it's all around. And like you have maybe your own little calm place here, but it surrounds you. And it's, there's a manicness to it. Does that make sense? Like I'm looking at people who are, and I'm talking Facebook, people are not really awake. You're just kind of watching the comments and the posts of people that you know on Facebook and what's going on in various groups, like for me, local groups, right? It's like people have become manic. Everything they need it now. Everything that they it's going wrong now. Oh, interesting. Okay, Natasha just said, Chris and Sherry Geo are doing hardcore energy work on the ancient sites in Egypt right now. I've actually caught a couple of the live. He's been Facebooking, doing live Facebook, and I've caught just a couple of small segments of it, so not enough to actually know what they're doing. It rained and flooded in Cairo and Aswan for the first time in decades right after they worked there. They feel like Hawaii might be related as well. It's opposite to them on the planet. This is, yeah, if the planet's a sphere. Ha, ha, ha. Well, you know, it's a cube as far as I'm concerned. Ben, yours was almost in reverse. How was yours in reverse? And Groot, why are you over here bugging me? Have you been locked out of the living room again? Oh, poor baby. We have all the kids over. They're all watching a movie in the living room, so. Yes, there's a desperation. It's like the desperation levels have reached epic proportions now. There is a desperation. That's what I was kind of meaning when I was saying manic. That there's a desperation. There's a manic edge. Yeah, Andrea, everything is so urgent. It's like now. This is a problem now. And it's kind of the same thing with, like we said, like we talked about it last week, weather. Even the weather seems to be mirroring that. Like freaking tornadoes in southwestern Ontario and windstorms that are ripping roofs off. And we've got Hawaii, I really think, is a big one that we need to watch. And there is an edge to something. And it actually, maybe that's the good word of it. It feels like we're on the leading edge of something. Ben just said, it's like watching a movie where everyone is on almost a zombie mode. I'm the manic one, all over the complacency and talk. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, you guys' comments have been fucking on the ball. The chat's going off here. Astrology says Uranus is about the transition after 8 years or something. I have no idea. Okay, Ashley said the Hawaii Islands are the highest electromagnetic field on the planet. Why? Like, do you have any data on why that is? Because there's obviously something about Hawaii. I mean, everyone I talk to who talks about Hawaii says there's something about Hawaii.
Hey there, I'm here.
Hey, Han. So electromagnetic central point. Can you?
So well, the island that I live on is Maui.
Yeah. And
Haleakala means house of the sun. And it is the highest electromagnetic field, or was. I mean, whenever they did the testing, it's supposedly, when you look at the ley lines of the planet, it's supposed to be the 10th gate, a stargate. Mm-hmm. They did a test. This is just an interesting part. They did a test in the center of Haleakala is supposed to be the quietest place on the planet. That is, it literally has a negative decibel level. It soaks in sound.
Really? That is cool.
I know. So I really thought about this. I mean, living here, like we talked about last week, you just said the micro and the macro. I've definitely looked at Hawaii Island as the macro part of representing what's going on in the world and what goes on here. The first time that when Kilauea erupted, many people said it was Pele's answer to the geothermal drilling they were doing into the mountain.
Yep.
And that she didn't want that, you know. And here it's about, they talk about Pele. She's answering something. What is she saying? And the pressure, the things that go on here. We've had to deal with Monsanto. We've had to deal with this being a de facto government. It was stolen by the Hawaiians, so that's definitely going on here. Then you have to deal with land grabs, just like everywhere else. You have to deal with, you have Hawaiians that literally get moved off of their family land that they've had for generations because why? Somebody came in and bought it on a quiet title, which is illegal.
Yep.
You've got water issues here, water being diverted.
And Hawaii is a testing ground. Like they use Hawaii, like not just Monsanto, but all these pharmaceutical companies, the chemtrail testing that they do there, the spraying, massive testing ground.
Oh, chemtrails here have been, and even right before the volcano went off and we had all those heavy rains in Kauai and in Big Island, we had some heavy rains here. We are a pretty rainy part of Hawaii. And yeah, you can tell, I can watch the chemtrails go up and I can say, okay, it's going to rain, and we've had so much rain. I feel like there's a node point here. That's what I can say energetically in terms of the micro and the macro. It's a node point. It's like a metaphor,
Yep.
The earth is speaking, humanity is speaking, the animals are speaking, as we are knowing, we're saying, we've all been saying that.
No.
So, I don't know. It's, when I look at, what Hawaii could be in terms of
versus what it's been turned into.
Yeah, what it's been turned into and how the whole programming and everything we've talked about and how they've done it through food and poison and toxicity and people who are in fear. But then you have all these other beautiful people who are, we're bringing this back. We're bringing the language back. We're bringing the culture back. We're bringing the memories back. We do not want to get too far in our generational, movement to not remember all of this important, mana is what they say here, as we say chi or mana, right?
Yep.
Mana is, it's super important to understand. And there are legends here that are so amazing. Like originally when the Polynesians first came, the people who were already living here had this mana that they had to try to learn to understand because they used their mind to get what they needed.
Yeah.
They have chants that so the Hawaiians were supposedly the greatest navigators in the world. They have chants that if you know when the currents are running, you can go from Hawaii to Fiji or Tahiti. You ride those currents. The chant and how they work, you know exactly where you are in your navigation based on where the chant is. You look up at the stars and it's exactly that where you are in the chant. So, I mean, those kinds of things, to me, Hawaii is a point. It is a pressure point. It is something to look at and pay attention to, and I do think it's gotten more.
And if we look at other pressure points, so we look at even like Syria is another important pressure point, and it's where they've just continued doing war after just continuous stuff there. And we look at these different places, and Ben just brought up New Zealand and the kind of the synchronicity between New Zealand and Hawaii, which is pictured as so green and lush and beautiful, and yet is so dirty. It's now what was once green and lush and beautiful has become just saturated with the takeover, with a takeover, really. And Ben just said, Hawaii is the heart, Aussie is the navel.
True. That's what they say here. Hawaii's the heart.
So, you know, I don't know. Is it like I say, is it a representation on the physical scale of our planet of what's going on? Oh, and Trina, exactly. Disney came out with the movie Moana. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Moana came out. I think it was 2016. If you haven't seen the Disney movie Moana, there's a lot of shit in that movie that is really fucking amazing. Awesome. But that's the whole thing, you know, the heart of the mother. The heart of the mother was taken away. And what happened when the heart of the mother was taken away? She became almost vengeful and angry, etc. And when they bring back the heart of the mother, she becomes back into that yeah, well, I can't say that, Ben. So you keep putting up your words that I'm not even going to be able to translate those ones. But Moana's got a great storyline, and I think in the same ways we can almost kind of see the echo of what you're saying with the volcano in Hawaii as well. And there's a very definite connection there, it seems to me. Yeah, well, exactly. There was, you know, like in February, it was the missile alerts. Oh my God, there's a missile alert. You know, North Korea is going to bomb us and nuke us and all this kind of shit. Where did it hit? It was like all Hawaii when they ran that whole fear scam through. I don't know. Crazy shit. That's all I have to say. Everything feels like it is just pop the pimple, tear the Band-Aid off. That's I'm with you, Charlotte. I'm totally fucking with you. Can we just rip the Band-Aid off and be done with this? I'll deal with the ouch, just so we can get on. Yeah, exactly, Chris. And boom, switch to Iran. And Iran is another country that has got a vast, ancient history. And a lot of the stories, the ancient Persian stories, are lost to us. Like they're not talked about. And some of their history and some of their ancient stories are also very, very fucking interesting. We're going back to like First Peoples, right? Yeah, Cat Mom, I need to watch the Avatar movie again too. I love that movie. I haven't watched it in about 2 years. Avatar with the blue people. Every time I watch it, it makes me cry. It makes me really hate myself for being human. It makes me hate humanity. So I kind of try to stay away from that one. It makes me sad more than anything else. But it's funny because we've had lots and lots of awesome conversations with our kids that they can understand the analogy when we talk about trees communicating and plants communicating. We always use Avatar as the example of that, right? Ben, you will love this. Logan came up to me, as he does with one of his books. He was reading a botany book, and he starts telling me, Mom, do you know that fungus, these mushrooms can grow to be massively huge and that they can communicate to each other? And I was like, yes. And we talk about the mycelium. You need to talk to Ben about the mycelium. And so we had a whole conversation. I said, you know, it's just like in Avatar, the movie, how all the trees could speak to each other. And it was the undergrowth that was the communication for it all. I said, that's the mycelium. So Logan was quite happy with that. I want a big house, and it's a big giant mushroom that I can use as a house. Live in a mushroom, just like the wee folk, the fairy folk in the story.
Then we would be all Smurf. If we all
we'd all be Smurfs. Well, we are talking about blue people, aren't we? Wait a second. Blue people living in mushrooms. Avatar. Blue people living, communicating with the mushrooms. Oh, there we go. Get a pot tree. No, I would never get anything done. I'd be sleeping all day. I don't know, Ben, why blue? I don't know why it's blue. I don't know. Vishnu and Krishna, yeah. Interesting. And the Vedics. Yeah, I can see the analogy on that one. Yeah. No. We're not talking about the blue chicken group. Sorry, they get. No. What happens to white under a black light? And the blue kachina? Yeah. So what do you think, guys? I don't know. Like I said, that was the only thing I really had to talk about tonight was just the craziness and the intensity of the craziness. Come on out, Ben. Tell us about the intensity of the craziness. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah. The intensiveness of the craziness. It's an understatement. I don't know. Well, you saw my little bit of thread on the Danny, Jeff, Randy, Emily.
I was trying. Jeff couldn't come. He's traveling. Randy's working. He may jump on later. We'll see. We've had this epic conversation going all week between the group of us about time. I just about fried my brain cells before I went to bed last night with that, and then I was like, I went to bed and couldn't sleep.
I
going on about time.
I now need to actually figure out what people's definition of time is now.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of back where I'm at, because as I said in my part of that thread, I was like, when I did the research on the map, when I did the research on trying to find out like what the hell had been going on, right? We started looking into Antarctica, and then we started looking into the longitudes and the latitudes, and then we realized that they'd treatised on the longitudes and latitudes, and they do that
and the gratical.
Well, they do the treaty on the longitude latitude every few years. One of those measurements solely used to be based on the sun. It then changed to being based on the moon. The other one was then based on the moon and time of the moon. Those two things crossed, then created the gradical. Now,
okay, whoa. What do you mean by the moon and time of the moon? Do you mean like as in the cycles?
Yeah.
So
the
your
cycle.
Full moon, new moon.
Yeah. So when these things came about, they literally changed everything. Like we went from sun and stars to longitude and latitude and the moon. That's what we went to. And as far as I can tell, as far as time, because see, things pass. Now, I know that we're still in debate about the pulse pause sort of theory, but it's kind of funny, Dee. I went through that sort of thing as well, and I'm still going through it. But not long after Clif, Randy, and Emily did their thing on time, I was like, I've got to fucking look into this Jainism, and there's not a lot of stuff out there. And then
you sent me that. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
This motherfucking book literally fell out of my bookcase, and there's actually a specific chapter in here on Jainism.
Uh-huh.
And it's quite a write-up, but it literally goes into the fact that this is older than Buddhism, or potentially older than Buddhism, is at the foot of the cradle, is right up there where Gobli Teki is. It goes into a lot of their stuff. But if the pulse and the pause theory is correct, then there is no past, because it got destroyed. But it got created all together at the same time as the now, except kind of like what we're looking at with this new research and stuff into C60. The telomeres is that's where the clincher is. It's not based on the fact that it cleans your cells. For me, it's the fact that it can actually allow your telomeres to rebuild. If you've got pristine telomeres, then you have pristine. Well, based on then your nutrition, you have pristine cell production. Yeah. So the human body technically is actually set up to not need to die.
Exactly.
So,
but that's what I'm saying about the telomeres. It's almost like there was a lifespan. Do you know what I mean? Like we're going to create a beginning and an end, clip the ends.
Yeah, based on nutrition.
Yep.
Based on nutrition. And if we deplete and harbour certain amounts of nutrients, including sunlights, because they all carry a different nutrient base, because once it accumulates in you, it will then show as a mineral or an amino acid or something along those kinds of lines. So if the pulse and pause thing's like kind of real, then that would bode why they're trying to ramp things up, and they're trying to accumulate and do everything all at the same time.
But here's this is what I wrote to you, and I don't even think I could repeat what I wrote to you guys when we were in this discussion. Let me pull it up and let me see if I can actually find it, because where are we? Going back, where's our group chat? Oh, for fuck's sakes, where are you guys?
I'm right here.
Yeah, you're right there, but I can't find the group chat. Hold on, just give me a second. I'm gonna have to do this because I'll have to actually. Is this it?
Well, no, you find it.
Oh, that's not it. There it is. Got it. Okay. So.
Because the premise is time, right?
The premise was about time, and. You had said, here we are, because we were talking about CERN and the simulation of frequencies. And you'd said, CERN, what if they're simulating frequencies, ergo, process starting, beginning time simulations. We know that the Earth is a resonating ball shape, Tesla, and we're now seeing the effects of frequency buildup and using the Earth as a resonator. Which is kind of where I was trying to go with the conversation on Sunday, and then we all got so sidetracked on other stuff that I never actually got there. But the question was, when we're talking about the pause stuff, and that's what I was trying to ask Cliff when I had the discussion with him back in like January about the 22 trillion bleep pulse pause in time that he had discussed with Randy and Emily, and the fact we kept coming up with this like 21 trillion. 21 trillion was talked about over and over again. I listed 20 or 25 examples of where the news is pushing 21 trillion, whether it's $21 trillion, 21 trillion volts, 21 trillion gallons. It was like they were trying to put this number in. And I'd asked Cliff if there was a chance that they were trying to create a sympathetic frequency in the Earth to kind of change the natural, if you will, 22 trillion, which is an oddball number. It's not actually 22. I know it's an oddball number. But change it by programming this other number that's very close to it, but to see if they could create a sympathetic vibration. And I went to sleep last night going on about that because I knew you and I went on about the gradical again, and I was talking about the GPS moving, how they have to shift GPS, right? The GPS. And what is magnetic north? What really is it?
Well, yeah, see, and that's...
I'm sorry, guys, I know that this conversation is probably just throwing everyone for a loop, and it's because I can't possibly condense down the whole conversation that we had without reading the entire, thing out.
Basically, D went, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is time? And then Randy went, we create time. And then I went, what the fuck is time? Because that's where this sort of story is going. It's like, as far as I'm created, what we consider time, and for me, as soon as I got this or set it in to myself, it changes things. There is no fucking time. Time, as far as I am concerned, is seconds, minutes, and fucking hours, and that's it. Because otherwise, it's sun up and sun down.
Yeah, okay. That's the thing
that's basic. There is
false pause, and that's why I disagree. Or I should say, that's why I have an issue, if you will, with the 21 trillion in the per second pulse and pause, is not necessarily its existence as it is Cliff's explanation.
Well,
his conclusion to it, right? And that's where I'm like, I don't know if I actually agree, because I actually feel like that pulse pause could very well be part of, wait for it, the gradical.
Well, okay,
It is a system that has been put on us. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the natural piece. That is like, could very well be part of the artificial, if you will, the digital versus the analog.
Well, here you go, right? So in this book, hang on, no, we'll go through. So Clif's numbers come from him actually going through the way that and they're called the jins, not the Janes, they're the jins.
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be.
Interesting, though.
And I'll tell you. Okay, so look, the words Jain and Jainism are derived from the Sanskrit root G, which is J-I, or could actually be he, because I don't know if they actually had J's, which means to conquer. A Jain or Jin is one who believes in conquering the flesh in order to attain to that supreme purity that which leads to infinite knowledge, infinite happiness, and infinite power, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the definition. Now, in here, there's Jin metaphysics, and it starts off with the difficult subject of Jin metaphysics is involved in the Jin view of life. Reality, which is uncreated and eternal, is defined as that which is characterized by birth and death in the midst of permanence. That is, it maintains its identity and permanence through the process of continual change through birth and death. Changes in appearance are the modifications a substance undergoes, the underlying substance remaining always the same. In gold, for example, the underlying substance remains gold despite the modifications involved in the manufacture from it of various ornaments. In the aspect of modification, called prayaya, there are birth and death. In the aspect of substance, or dravya, there is only permanence. One mode disappears, another appears, but the underlying substance is invariable. Substance and its qualities, the gunas, can never be separated. There can be no substance without a quality and no quality without a substance, but they are distinct from each other in the mind of the observer.
Okay.
So this is basically the point of view, a position fundamentally different from that of another thought, which recognizes an absolute distinction between substance and its quality. So essentially what it is Jinism it doesn't define between energy and matter.
Yeah.
Because it's basically down to the observer. So this is coming back to, you have an avatar, it gets presented with tools, and it is up to you as the observer and the driver of the avatar to integrate the tools presented so that you can master the avatar or the flesh to perform the tasks in which you need the consciousness, the I am, to get there.
Okay, so take the word substance out and throw in the word consciousness. Throw in the word even human, even if you throw in that, because if you could look at it on a simpler level, the fact of the human is the human, regardless of how it's altered.
All right.
And by that, but I mean the human, not the human like this, or do you know what I mean? I mean, if you will, the S word, the soul word, but
here you go.
That is unalterable.
They break this down just a little bit, right? So it says the ultimate realities, which are uncreated and eternal, and which make up the structure of the cosmos, are 6 in number. The first 5, jiva, soul or spirit; Pudgala, matter; Dharma, the principle of motion; Adharma, the principle of rest; and Akasa, space. They receive the technical name, right, Pankastikayas, 5 astikayas. The word astikaya means an existence capable of spatial relations. To these, the Pankastikayas must be added kala, time, which is a substance different in nature from the 5 astikayas, because time is non-spatial and corresponds to unilateral series in mathematics, and hence it is excluded from the class of astikayas.
Okay,
In
hold
gen-
on. Kala,
yep.
time,
Yeah.
as in, I'm sorry, but we look at Kali and the Kali Yuga, that we're purportedly in the Kali Yuga, which is this destruction.
Yeah.
I don't know, that seems really interesting, like almost like I draw the line between the two, the time. Anyways, go ahead. No, sorry, it just popped into my head then.
Yeah, no. It just says then in Jainism, in Jain metaphysics, nevertheless, it is included under the 6 dravyas, or realities, which compose a universe of beings or things. These 6 dravyas, ultimate realities, fall into 2 divisions. So this stuff is like, it's quite, but it goes in and it defines all these different bits and pieces, and how well, essentially it's the way it comes across to me is like dimensions. You have different dimensions which are different frequencies. Once those different frequencies coalesce, they have the potential to then expose themselves as matter or energy, right? And then it's down to the observer
But
to what they're observing.
They don't define a difference between matter and energy.
It goes like I'd have to keep reading because I'd have to start from the very start. Because it goes into atoms and all this kind of stuff, right? Matter is a substance associated with the sense properties, color, taste, smell, touch, and sound, and existing independently of the perceiver. It is the physical basis of the universe and is composed of entities called paramanus, atoms. A paramanu has no parts nor any beginning, middle, or end. It is eternal, uncreated, and ultimate. In itself, it has no form, though it is the iridical basis of Padgala, which has form. When 2 or more atoms unite, they are called skandha, an aggregate. The aggregate of atoms which constitutes the universe is known as the Mahaskandha, the great aggregate. The atoms are subject to modification. Yeah, it's a fucking great word.
It is.
The atoms are subject to modification, producing different substances as they combine differently, though no differences exist in the primary atoms. In this respect, the atoms of Jain metaphysics differ from the paramanus of the Nyaya Vaisesika philosophy, which is another philosophy thorn in that area. So, which holds that there are as many kinds of atoms as there are primary elements. These are 5 in number: earth, air, ether, fire, and water. The movement and combination of atoms are caused by the intervention of akasa, space, dharma, principle of motion, and adharma, principle of rest, uncreated, eternal, and formless. So this comes back into Dr. Oyebo's Gagut theorem, where what he says is energy coalesces, hydrogen is created, hydrogen atoms then coalesce again, and then so on, and there's a trickle on through things reaching their mass or capacity.
Okay, I want to draw a definition here because I don't believe in coincidence, Ben, and I look at the conversations that we have. And earlier on this week, we had, and I'm laughing, who was it who just said it? Was it JC? I'm laughing because JC just made a comment who that's why they're being pushing all the cyborg tech on us so we can transition into the digital. Okay? And we had this conversation earlier this week, totally separate from everything else. I think it was Jeff and Ben and I about the difference between digital and analog as far as sound goes and audio. And we were joking because Jeff had said, like, basically he'd gone and he'd had this experience of like listening to this piece of music, analog, and talking about tubes, proper old-fashioned tube analog type systems, right?
Amplifiers.
Yeah. Right? And I was saying, I said, I have an uncle who has, he has a record player, and the thing is insured for about $25,000. This just the record player. And his setup that he plays like his music on is anciently old. It's like, it's all tubes, the whole bit. And he will not listen to digital music. He will not take digital photographs. For him, everything has to be analog. He's like, digital is shit. And he has actually turned so many people who are like very, very digital guru, musician type guys. And he's like, no, let me show you the difference, and put a piece of music on his stereo where it's all analog. And they're blown away. They're blown away by the intricacy of the music that you lose in digital. There's something with digital that you absolutely lose it. And it's the same with digital photography in a lot of ways. So we're having this conversation here. And like I said, that little conversation happened like over here as a sub-conversation that went off. Now we're talking about this. And I'm going to go back to the pulse and pause thing and what I said. It feels to me like the pulse. What are you showing now? I can't.
No, it's all right. It's too small. Keep going.
It's too out of focus. I couldn't read it. You'll have to scan it, ha ha ha, or take a picture of it and then post it. There he is. What he's doing? He's like, I'll take a picture. Digital technology at its finest. Look. Yes, and there is a completeness in analog. Digital pixelates eventually, and that's exactly where I want to go with this. In my mind, this is the problem that I've had with the whole concept of the pulse pause, is it feels to me like the pulse pause is digital. It is the digital. It is the ones and the zero. It is binary. It's the pulse pause. It's on or it's off, right? The analog feels more like what you were talking about when you were talking about like the hydrogen and that expansion, etc. I can't remember what the guy's name is again. Say it again.
Dr. Oyibo.
Oyibo, that's it. Dr. Oyibo. Where it, well, what's the word I want to use? Where it is ever changing, right? Like that's the idea. It's like the thing, it becomes this, and the matter and the energy becomes, and it changes and it moves through, and it doesn't change, because I agree with the whole thing about the Jainism. It says, even though it changes, it's still its original part. You can take gold, you can turn it into an earring, but it's still gold. And you can
and carbon. So carbon's a perfect example.
Exactly. And that's what it's going to come back to, because the whole thing about the carbon that we've been talking about for fucking ever. The human cannot be changed. So this is where I keep coming into this thing, and this was part of the conversation that we were doing with Randy and Emily earlier this week. We keep bumping into years. There's certain dates that seem to become smack up against them over and over again. There was something happened at that moment. In that time, there was a switch. There was a change. We got into this on the conversation on Sunday. I talk about 2012, and we talk about 2015. Because like I said, it just seems like over and over again, those two dates just keep smacking up in my face.
Well, is it that the 24-hour time thing, like that time frame, of course.
Your internet's gone shitty.
Exactly. That time frame is falling out of sequence, right? So then you talk about the GPS, right? You talk about the GPS, and if we're on an expanding planet, it puts the GPS way to quickly recalibrate it, because they don't know how much the expansion is going.
Okay, exactly. So that was part of it that we talked about. But even put that as the gradical, right? So if you can imagine what you put, and guys, I can't even begin to go into the whole gradical thing, because that was a discussion that we had on a show a few months ago. But the gradical being almost like the overlay of the longitude and latitude, creating a net, a
grid. It's a grid.
A grid over the planet. And that grid becomes the setting of time, if you will. Okay? It is artificial. It is digital. And it's like you said, with the expanding planet, their gradical is not keeping up. It can't I don't think
Well,
the planet is also expanding at a rate that are even. I think that we're having, like, this place spreads here and then this over here, and their digital graphical doesn't fit in.
Just remember too, like, one thing that I want to point out that needs to sort of be fully kind of comprehended is when you look at what's going on in Hawaii, there's I mean, depending on your definition of volcano, of course, the volcano's not so much blowing up. There are fissures opening up and releasing. Because with that much activity, if that was coming out of one point of a volcano, it would be much, let's just say, it would be a bigger explosion. But what's happening is that island is releasing the pressure that is built up. So it's expanding. It's literally expanding. Even if it's only by mere millimeters, if they're using missile-guided systems and stuff, that throws everything out. That throws everything out. And you've got to recalibrate. Like, let's just say the Earth hasn't really been expanding for like the last 200 years, and they've just gone, woohoo! Right? And gone, we've just mapped it, we've just done it. That's why they've gone, right, let's go fucking full-scale digital. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day because I was trying to get a quote for a parcel to be sent. And it's like, put your postcode and the area it's to be sent. And then it started going through this fucking thinking thing, and it was giving me options of addresses in that area to pick from. And unless I picked from none of those addresses, it couldn't give me a quote. And I went, hold up a second. All of a sudden, like through these censuses and stuff, have they just finally started to map? Because I don't know what goes on in America or anywhere else, but I know that down here, digitally, we get really fucked with before most of the rest of the world. And even people in the Southern Hemisphere don't realize, right? Even just down to the way we use our banking systems and stuff like that, it's like, it's different. It is very, very, very different. But it's like all of a sudden there's all this stuff, and it's like, holy shit, like they've got all these addresses, and unless your address is on it, like, which is hard for me because my address is living in body, and I don't think that they've got that yet. But
they don't recognize that postal code, sweetie. I'm sorry.
No, exactly. So there's depending on where you're looking, there's all these different correlations, and I have to stress the gratical isn't a made up thing. Like, it's real.
Oh yeah,
it's theirs. You
Go
can
look
actually look at, and look at how it was created, like literally. And someone put in there about the longitudes and latitudes having been sort of changed. We only used to have one of them. We never used to have both of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's longitude has always existed, and latitude was created. Latitude was created for them to boat with. That's what I mean. Like, latitude was the thing that was like, one of them was the like circumference of the Earth, and the other one was the other way around, and or the height to measure the height of the dome by definition.
By definition. Yeah.
I'll scan. I've got about 5 or 6 handwritten notes that I'll try and scan later on today, and try and put up on what time is, because my whole thing started with I can't remember which president it was, but was it President? Yeah, Franklin. No. Anyway, one of the presidents is the first person to say money is time, time is money, and it just so happened that quote that he said was in the Economist magazine. So that set me off, and I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. What is time? So I started looking, and then I started looking at money. And to me, what they've done is they've divided the world, their world, into time and money. And that's how they get to do all their maths, because time has a monetary...
Okay. What did Chris say? Hold on, I'm going to go up here. Digit all. Chris Breakspear said, digit all. They want to turn us all into digits for total control. New digits?
That's where it started, right? And then they got digital.
Yep. But this thing that keeps smacking me is the fact that we are analog. this unchangeable, through that definition of what you were talking about, like in Jainism, like the original substance.
What do you mean by see? That's the thing. The original substance to me is the consciousness.
That's what I'm saying. So when I'm saying I'm saying we as in the greater we, as in you can cut off an arm off the avatar.
Yeah.
But you can fill the avatar full of hallucinatory drugs. You can do all these things. But the original...
Yeah, you can't change the consciousness, but you can change it.
The consciousness.
You can
just warp the avatar.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And then if you've thrown the consciousness's knowing out from being able to read its inherent abilities and confuse them with things called feelings and emotions, then your system programs, you don't know when you're running out from oil or radiant fluid or fucking your windscreen wipers are out. You just know that the car's broken. That's as much as you've got.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there is a culmination of something. I mean, at the end of the last end of discussion, there was a lady called Claudia Albers that was put forward. So I've been looking into her, and she's kind of like a Nassim Harriman, but she's been kicked out of universities from being a professor, from going, hey, the sun's got these massive coronal holes on it. What's going on? And she's actually started outing a lot of the lens flares and all that kind of stuff. And what she started putting forward was the fact that they're using frequency to pulse through the air, to use the particulates that they've been putting there to create atmospheric lenses in certain places to amplify the sun, to hide the fact that basically 2/3 of the sun is actually a coronal hole right now.
Yep.
Well, it's a solar minimum, right?
Yep.
And like me and you messaged, and Chris Cornell, black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? It's like, these are all prophetic fucking things, but these are, you talk about we came from the darkness. We came, and then light came. We're going back into Genesis kind of stuff here, and the possibility of trying to get ahead of that so that people don't realize. The atmosphere is at a low. We know that. So the pressure is different. So therefore, maybe new particles, new stuff is being able to be created, is being created, will be being, you know what I mean? It's. But the big thing for me is like, when we talk about time, are we talking about things to do with the clock, or are we talking about things that are passing? Right, fleeting things.
Okay, and this is again, because we went into this last night trying to define that whole thing of time. Not the clock. Throw the clock out. I mean, I very rarely, it was a joke. We were all down on the beach this evening with all the kids just running crazy because Sarah's here with all her kids. And we're doing sleepover exchanges, so I got her kids here, and she's got some of my kids there. It's gotten crazy, and they were all running on the beach, and I'm holding the baby, and we're having a good giggle, and then all of a sudden, someone mentions time, and Sarah goes, "Don't you have a show tonight?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I do. Fuck, what time is it?" Because they don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like time is irrelevant, and I keep talking about in our house, we're getting more and more to that fact of like, we eat when we're hungry, not because the clock says so. You start allowing yourself to do things without a clock ticking off minutes, seconds, hours.
Do you get hungry not looking at it?
And that's it, exactly. I literally went through all day today, and granted, I had a really stressful day, but at one point, I turned around and was like, I was making dinner and went, wow, I don't think I had lunch. No, I didn't. I've had a peach today. I did. And that's what I had to eat. I'd had a peach today. And then you sit there going, I actually am hungry. But again, the clock didn't tell me I was hungry. It was just a matter of like, oh, wait, you can smell food starting to to cook and it hits the olfactory system and goes, hey, reminder, you didn't eat anything today. Perhaps you may want to have some of this. But yeah, like you get to the point of like time is the passing of experiences, if you will. And that's kind of what I've come down to now, is I have to look at it and go, to me, time is the passing of certain experiences that happened before.
Well,
So
time gives us something to attach those experiences to.
Yes, but they have been experienced, as in you experienced it. It could be yesterday.
Yeah. But see, that's kind of the big word, isn't it? You experienced it, and now you're now. So you're not then. So yeah. So it's kind of that whole
don't
thing.
go there again, Ben. Seriously,
But
you're gonna go into the now is now is now.
No. I'm not going into the now is now is now. But the thing is like you're not then. So what have you integrated to help you perform forward?
Exactly.
How's that?
But that's what time, to me, that is what, if we're gonna try to define time in its analog, as to use a variation, saying digital is the clock. In the analog is it's the natural occurrence. Something happens, you experience it, you take that and you move it into your now, and it's then help guide you in the next experience that's coming up later. Would you stop that? Damn you, Ben.
No, it's like
every time we have this conversation on time, this is what happens.
The definition of what we saying, analog time, digital time.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Shit happens. Analog time is shit happens.
So shit happens.
Digital time tells you it happened at 2:45 a.m. Really, does that matter? All you need to know is that shit happened.
But that depends on whether your digital clock is 12-hour or 24-hour chosen. Oh, because it could be 14 or...
Seriously? Could you just... Oh, you are such a fucking troublemaker, I'm telling you. But exactly. So, for example, for me, I think in a 24-hour clock. And I've only had to just change it now is because so many people just don't understand. I say it's 1850 and people look at me like I've grown another head on my shoulders. Annette, you're going to have to listen to the recording because we've been talking about Hawaii for like the whole beginning of the show, and now we're on to talking about time again. Annette's just pulled up from Hawaii, but...
what if those were the markers? What if it was Hawaii blows up, fucking Mesopotamia shakes, fucking New Zealand lifts up, Australia moves up, and that's literally like a Rubik's Cube. The planet is the clock.
And that's when we go back to what I talked about on Sunday, when we talk about like the Hopi prophecies and things like this. They'd say there's a rollout of things that will, and you've talked about it with the Aborigines. And the Maoris, that there are certain things that they foretell and prophesy, if you will.
Well, but see, then remember, there's Paul that I told you about, and what they've done after remaking all these artifacts and learning these languages and stuff like that. They've actually started doing the Brothers Grimm on it, which is they've started tracing the oral histories and tracking it back. So you've got the cousins from across the Atlantic, which it shows an oral history and genetic history, and even down to the chieftains or kings or whatever you want to call them's names, the movement of peoples from Alaska to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right, but then you've also got talk of when they got there were peoples there.
Yeah, there already were people there, exactly. And they gathered the knowledge as they went.
Exactly. Well, see, Hawaii, to me, represents what the ancient stories I've got coming out of New Zealand, where Hawaii were not, the Hawaiians were very, very peaceful. In fact, I just read an article from the Hawaiian elders not long ago about the cannibalism that is said to have been done in Hawaii, and it goes right into the fact that it's so wrong it's not even funny, because their funeral rituals, which very similarly represent our kind of cremation-ish, parts of our cremation stuff. And energetically, when you read into why they did it, it's like, holy fucking Jesus Christ. It also shows why they burnt witches basically alive. It explains that kind of theorem.
Yeah.
But, you've got all those correlations, and you've got all these wrong things that have been portrayed. But the Hawaiians were peaceful as fuck. Like, very, 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 very peaceful. They weren't warring. They were so in tune, and they were, along with the Aborigines, they're some of the last adulterated of that knowledge form.
Yeah.
So, and like I say, for me, it's like I'm watching this stuff and I'm looking at the sun and I'm going, well, this is starting to correlate with X, Y, and Z. I had someone pull out some papers showing me this earthquake that happens in and around the Auckland region in New Zealand. And it happens around every 230 to 260 years. And it is pointed straight at Sydney. The last time it happened, I think, was 260 years ago. So this area is due.
Again, due?
Yeah, but guess how big the wave was, D? 160 meters hitting Sydney. And this is like being studied.
So when we were in Australia, we talked about this, and we talked about the Aborigine story about, was it you? I'm pretty sure it had to have been you. It may have been Jesse, though. That about the wave, about the waves coming, and that the waves had to be, and you had to be at a certain level because the waves were going to be X high, like they were like 300 meters high or 300 feet high. I can't remember what it was.
200 meters.
200 meters. So again, if we're talking about something that is a repeating cycle, because we're talking about this. So you just talked about there is this earthquake that happens once every X many years, and the last time it happened, this is what happened with it. What do we hear about on all the fear porn about the San Andreas Fault? Oh, well, the San Andreas Fault, it blows every X many years, and we're 50 years late. Oh my God, right? So there is what obviously is cycles. So yes, okay, going back to your question, is what's happening in Hawaii part of the cycle? And that the next thing that happens is this is you have, if pressure blows here, you're going to have a response somewhere else that will respond, even from the electric, the magnetic. You can't tell me that much pressure in the volcano is not setting off a chain reaction in the electrical and magnetic of that area, which is then going to be echoed somewhere else. And therefore, what's the response there?
Do you know it's quite kind of funny? It's like, if you think about this, right? Alaska, Canada, Yellowstone have all been having stuff go off, right, over the last half a decade, basically.
Yep.
You've got quite a high geothermal area up in the northern hemisphere, and you've got ice melting and da-da-da-da. What if the reason that we were boat farers was literally because of this? And then you've got certain tribes like Jainism and certain things that found places, or the Aborigines in Australia that found places that actually were stable.
Yep.
So they stayed there. That's why, like the reason they say that Jainism never broke out is because one of their things is like, well, it's up to us to learn this shit, and it's a journey. Yeah. We're not here to preach. So they never actually went out talking about it.
They didn't go and knock on people's door and say, can we sell you a Watchtower and Awake magazine?
Yeah, exactly. So what if this was literally like the whole circumnavigation of the globe was our nomadicism, much the same as the Aborigines lived down, or what's called being nomadic. But we did it over the whole terrain. And that's basically how we learn. And that was the whole thing. It's like, okay, Hawaii's going to blow up. So we would have left Hawaii like fucking 8 months ago because the signs would have been there.
The signs would have been there. We were headed to Polynesia, or we headed to Fiji, or...
we'll stop off in Rapa Nui because that's the way the currents go.
Yeah.
That's just the way the currents go. And then from Rapa Nui, the currents go straight down to New Zealand, around New Zealand, and off to Antarctica. So it's like, you don't actually, like, and don't get me wrong, the ancients were super, super smart. But once you work it out, it's like you chuck your fucking boat in, you aim at a star, and the current takes you that way. You just got to make sure you're still pointed at the star. Yeah. And that's where the things in Moana with the feeling of the different temperatures, because one's the Atlantic, one's the Pacific, one's the North Pacific, one's the South Pacific. The North Pacific is colder than the South Pacific, and you're going in the slipstream, which goes all the way down, which is the feeding cycles that the whales and every fucking other animal uses for their migration and breeding and feeding.
But we also have even things like, if you look at the Inuit, right? So I did a whole pile of research on the Inuit people, the Eskimos, and it's the same thing. Those people are all over, genetically, all over Russia, northern and way out in the far east of northeastern Russia, and then came across what was then, however, whether you say it's a land bridge or whether it was the fact that the Arctic was completely frozen, down into over and into North America, Alaska, northern Canada. But they are the same people genetically. They've done the test, and they said the people that are over there, that are considered the native peoples, the original peoples, if you will, of northern Russia, genetically the exact same as the Inuit in northern Canada.
See, and then you've got almost like these genetic markers where certain peoples, like the Aborigines here, it starts to look like it was a place that was stopped off by many nations, and information exchange at the very least was transpired. So on the way through, if you've got a couple of people that are like, yeah, we're going to stay here and we're going to like master the shit here.
Yep.
It's like, and it doesn't move, they can go, look, we haven't seen any changes, but these stars have shifted. So just bear in mind that off of this continent that we know doesn't change because we've got our law and we keep talking to each other and we walk it every other fucking day, these stars have shifted, but our place is sweet. Do you know what I mean? So everyone then goes and recorrelates their star, their astronomical charts, and then they go on their journey again.
I ran across a legend years ago, I had to have been probably in my late teens, my early 20s, and I was thinking about this the other day, I cannot remember what Aborigine or Native Peoples group it was. I honestly can't. I can't remember what it was. And they talked about the traveling, and that there were those who stopped and stayed in places because they were supposed to stay there because they were the markers for that place. And that when people in the tribe, as the tribe was moving, would all of a sudden get to a spot and go, this is our spot. This is where we're going to be. And then the rest of the tribe would move on, and they would stop. And because they had their spot, they knew that was their spot to look after, whether it was energetically, through the spreading of the information, the lore, whatever. But they knew when they'd found their spot, and the rest of the tribe would continue on their journey.
Well, and what they used to do is like there's lots of stories about how certain Pacific tribes were looking for like a chieftain got in with his family and his crew and went to search for his sons, and they stopped off in a couple of places, and he dropped one daughter off here and he dropped one daughter off here, and they married into the tribe, but it gave them, so next time they came through, they were family.
They were family. Yep.
But something just triggered in these guys.
There's a greater sense to that conversation, guys, though. Think about it now. Don't look at it as in just tribes on a planet. Think about it as like tribes in a universe. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole thing, visiting from planet to planet, and you drop off your daughter over here on this planet, and you drop and you seed and you create that.
But, well, now clip that into entanglement.
Exactly, and that's so. Talk about
there's
the quantum entanglement then of the DNA and the DNA consciousness and the communication between the DNA.
Well, the unit.
The unit. Define.
The universal internet.
Oh, the unit. Sorry, I thought you were meaning like unit as in UNIT, and I was like, wait, you've lost me. Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah,
no.
okay, so yes, we'll go back into that exactly universal internet, the quantum entanglement across realms, planets, if you will, dimensions, and that there's a communication network there already set up
Exactly.
because it's
But
already been spread out.
Just on another note, in the chat, Doppy was like, "Do you have the new map, Deb or Moksha?" But then I just started thinking about when we started going through all that map stuff, and we were like, "Look at Iceland, look at fucking at South Africa, look at." So what if the Earth has been going through changes? They just don't go. The Earth has gone through changes. Here's your new updated map, and that's how they do it. They just don't make the announcements. They're just like,
They
"Here's
just
the
don't
latest."
announce to everyone that South America has moved by several thousand miles. And yeah.
So, but that's also, you know, that once again it goes into that. It's like the definition. So it's like if we talk about has time changed, then fucking A. But my perception of time changed a while ago when I changed my perception of time, and I realized that time was only there for me to be somewhere else for someone else, and that when I was on my time, it didn't matter. It was irrelevant. It was just like get shit done while the sun shined.
Get your shit done, get your laundry dried while the sun is shining, get the lawn trimmed, and everything else is irrelevant after that. Well,
Exactly.
This is this draw. I mean, I literally, and I've talked about it a few times, I really do feel this really strong draw that the whole getting rid of time and the mechanization or the digitalization of time is really becoming important. But the issue comes is when others have an expectation of you, on you, to be at this place at this time and do that thing.
But then have you agreed to be there at that time? See?
But this is the thing. But you go through, assumptions are made. And it's funny.
Totally.
We had this conversation a little while ago in the World School group on Facebook, because people were talking about what's one of the things that you had to, like when you started traveling as a family, what you came face to face with that you had to learn to accept, learn to work around. And we always joked about when we got to Morocco, it was Inshallah. Everything is Inshallah, which direct translation means God willing. But it comes down to like, well, we'll meet you at lunch tomorrow, Inshallah. Which means, we'll be there 12, but it might be 2. It could be 4. And like, well, your package will be delivered on Friday, Inshallah. Meaning it could be Friday, it might be Thursday, it could be Saturday. It might even be next Friday, right?
It's Nimbin time.
Well, that's it. And in Gozo, it's the exact same thing. Like, it's the whole Mediterranean thing is like, it's a little more laid back. But we have assumptions. People work within their own assumptions and their own experience. So we used to always joke. You could always tell the really uptight British people when they get to Gozo, and they're so used to working on that clock like this, and then they get to a place like Gozo where everything's really, really laid back, and they go like, I went to the print shop, and it says that they'll be open at 4 p.m., and it's 5 after 4, and they're not open. And it's like, yeah, it's Gozo. Maybe they'll be open at 4:30. Might be 5. Maybe they've gone fishing, and they're just not going to open at all. Assumptions are made. But it's an amazing how that time factor has been turned into a control mechanism. They control everything with it. It was like, you have to be at school at this time. You have to go to this class at this time. You have to eat at this time. You have to go home at this time. You have to watch your TV show at this time.
Your patience is based on time now. Our patience has been bought with time. It's like they've got to make a 30-second commercial. You've got to, because the time span, and the reason, I'll tell you what, the reason I say this is from working in hospitality. Now, I can make a coffee in about 48 to 60 seconds, right? So I can say to a customer with no other coffee there, it will only be a moment. I used to say it'll take a second, but it takes a bit longer, and some people would be like, oh yeah. So I started getting a bit more better with my wording. So I was like, it only take a moment, and I'll tell you what, they're gone. They're gone. That they will just turn off and walk away. And the expectation is, one,
instant.
You'll bring you'll bring it out, but B, it's like they literally will stand there tapping their fingers within 30 seconds. And I've just got, like, only in the last little while have I sort of gone, wow, our attention span is down to, like, you know, it's like when we were trying to make intros for certain video segments, and, you know, you get to like 20 seconds of an intro and they're going, okay, come on, what's going on? It's like, dude, it's been 20 seconds.
It's literally the intro for Transpicuous Views. The intro video for Transpicuous Views, I think, is like 34 seconds. And you would not believe how many people I've had put comment on fucking YouTube going, oh my God, 30-second intro, seriously? I'm like, wow. And that's the only comment you can leave about the entire 2-hour video, is that the 30-second intro is too long for you to handle.
But see, that's people's perception, right? It's like, it's very, very crazy. Because at first I was like, when I first saw it, I think you showed me before you sort of put it out, and I was like, wow, this is really long. And then I actually started watching it, but it's amazing what the pitches and the timing of the pitches and the frames coming up and the different types of music can actually. And then I started looking at the time, and I was like, holy Jesus, Ben, what are you on? It's like, it's 30 seconds. It's like, come on. But see,
see, you got a short attention span, but we already know that. We'd call you 10-second Tom, but Tom might get mad and get offended.
So, yeah, when we start talking about changes and stuff like that, it's sort of like, I think really it's like we can simplify it again. It's like observationally, we are all noticing, what do you want to call it? Discrepancies.
To put it mildly.
Simply, put it simply. But you get what I mean. It's like, you know, when you start throwing in things like light filtration, energy and frequency, and all these little different bits and pieces, it's like you can start correlating a whole lot of stuff. It's like I had some friends come to me. They're like, we're selling our house, we're going traveling, we're buying a block of land, and then we're going to come back and build. But the 5G stuff's starting to affect us, and the EMF stuff. So we're going to look at laying a Faraday cage inside the walls. And I was like, oh, hold up. I was like, check out biogeometry first, because this is the stuff that we're talking about. It's like what he's got with his sigils and stuff. You don't need to worry about that. I said, and then we're developing this hempcrete and sugarcrete, which changes other things as well. So it's like, you don't need, you know, things are getting more and more simplified. It's just how attainable they are and how diversified it is. You know what I mean? It's like this guy's got this biogeometry, and I'm fucking seriously reading the studies and stuff like that. It's like, fuck me. Oh, well, I'll just forget about worrying about that shit again. But I've got to then I've got to make sure I go out and get the book and go through it all and do that sort of stuff as well, right? Because otherwise there's a tool that I'm not using, and I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, well, 5G's about to get turned on and my cells are about to get fried, but there is that book that's there and da-da-da-da-da, you know.
Yep.
So there are a lot of these things out there, time being a very big fucking ominous, lurking thing that, you know, once again, it's for me, when I realized that time was only there for me to be on someone else's, it became something different.
Yeah.
It became something different. And I started looking at it differently. So then when I realized that other people have expectations on time. So if it's a business meeting, I try and get there early. Why? Because I know it looks good in that situation and it works in my favor.
It works
and it's
in your
actually
favor. Yeah. Yep.
no skin off my back. If I aim to be there early and the universe throws a little obstacle, I have some spare in the tank.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a common courtesy. I'm sorry, but I go back to the whole thing of like common courtesy. There is a common courtesy if you're talking about business and you're talking about meetings with people and you know that they have an expectation on time, then I'm going to try and meet that expectation as a courtesy of showing them that respect. I can't expect everyone to live by my fucked up version of time.
No, but see, that's the thing is you live by your expectation. So like I say, it's like if you actually think that it's polite to be punctual, regardless of whether it's a business meeting or your mates. You get what I mean? Because if you're not punctual, but then other people that are also not punctual start rubbing you up, then maybe it's you've got to look at it from a different perspective. And that's what I think a lot of people forget to do. It's not just about you, it's about you and you're doing your work. So then it's like if you want to be around people, you've got to weigh up is it beneficial or is it not beneficial? And if it's beneficial and you want those people, how can you mold and adapt? And this doesn't mean like changing who you are. It's just like, are there aspects that you could alter so that this person fits better because you want them around? Or just let them. I just call it Teflon. Shit don't stick.
Okay, going back to the analog digital thing. It feels to me that every time the conversation of time comes up, we get a little closer. We get a little closer to, I don't want to say the truth because what do we fucking know about the truth? We don't know nothing. But there seems like we're pulling the pieces together. And the conversation today and that aspect of digital versus analog feels really important to me. It feels really important to me in the fact of analog is a flow, whereas the digital is the stop and start. It is that on and
enumeration.
Enumeration?
Well, you've got shit happening, right? There's stuff going on everywhere all the time. But then we've numbered and mathematized everything. So is analog what happens? Like is the analog what's going on?
Oh, see, I like the way you just said that. Analog is what happens, and digital is the measurement of it. Is the numeration of it? Is the mathematicalization of it? There you go. I just invented it. I just invented a word. Mathematicalization.
But that's what I mean. As you used to philosophize, and then they started turning philosophies into equations, right? It's kind of like Einstein. Einstein in my head is like the perfect example, depending on what you've read and what is real that is written in history. But he was the philosopher. He was a philosopher. But his wife cousin was a mathematician, and his philosophies and his utterances were turned into mathematical equations by this woman. So as soon as it's like with algebra, you can assign a number and a letter to any given principle as long as the equation works.
Yep.
And that's all it's about.
Correct, but you can fucking do it.
So,
because then you can come up with an equation to define that it is correct. Even
the theory of
nothing.
The theory of relativity is our mathematical basis. Newtonian Newtonian gravitational theory is the basis for everything to stick to. And then you have the theory of relativity that is based on that gravity. But as I've said to you before in this room as well, Dee, is like the more I look at that word levity and what levity is like to have gravity, you need mass. What makes mass? Well, in my eyes, levity is what creates the mass. So you've got these mathematical equations that are defining the universe. And this is what I've always wondered is when these physicists are asked, it's like, oh, we find numbers and equations everywhere. It's like, how the fuck do you find an equation? Like, I've never seen on a microscope anywhere zeros and ones going.
Okay,
never.
Exactly. Okay.
So what
again,
they've actually...
This is what I come back to. There was a shift. There was a change. There is something. Because, I'm sorry, to the best of my knowledge, 40 years ago, scientists were not talking about finding ones and zeros and mathematics all over the universe. Now it's like commonplace. Like this theory is now it's being discussed in the mainstream. You're living in a digital. Why are we living in a computer simulation that is a digital? Oh, there's the word again. Digital simulation of da 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 da. Okay.
So here's one for you.
Okay.
Well, it's not that much over 400 odd years that the King James Bible was written, right? So what if that was the codification of the previous 400-year solar minimum? They thought they'd worked it out, but they hadn't gone through, let's say, 4 of them, which is the 1600-year, procession. So the Bible was only written out. It's like a
quarter procession instead of the whole procession.
And or they made it halfway through that procession thinking it was, and this is actually the final. So they thought they had everything all sorted, and then the sun's gone and done what it does, and the Aztecs or the whoever were the ones that were like, hey, ha, ha, ha. And then Soundgarden in the 90s were like Black Hole Sun, and we forgot.
Erg. Yeah, don't even get me. I've had Black Hole Sun going through my fucking head now since yesterday. And it's your fault. I blame you. Yeah, you just took me offline. I've totally forgot what I was just going to say. It must be close to my bedtime. I've totally lost track of what I was going to say.
So Penny's gone and said, does the equation work because of the formula, or do we make it work because we can? Okay, so on that, someone posted a photo of some shoes in Facebook, and I think it was on the UnFuckIt page, and they were like, is this white and pink or green?
Or is it green and gray?
Green.
It's like the fucking dress.
Do you know that? So I'm fucking colorblind, okay, with red and green. But do you know, as I read the comments, the shoes changed color.
Really?
Yep. As I read the comments,
pink and white. I looked at one glance and I saw this pink and white, but I've only seen it the once, so I haven't gone back to look at it again.
We'll see. It changes depending on the comment I read, because it was one color and then it changed again. And then I read another comment and I was like, oh. But my brain, of course, is then flicking between what colors it's seeing. It's already fucked. It's already color impaired.
My brain is already color impaired, and you're just fucking with my head now.
At the very minimum. But see, the thing is it's kind of like the slot experiment in what the bleep. What the bleep. For the New Ages, that divine consciousness has say or sway over the experiment. However, what it actually showed was exactly what Penny's asking, which is they wouldn't fucking know if they didn't make the machine to measure it. End of. And even then, depending on what they're witnessing, they're still saying that the particle can be a particle or a wave. Whereas the particle has a wave. The particle has a wave, much the same as you have a body or your body has a person and yada, yada, yada. Yep. See, the process is quite, it's throughout the whole thing. It's the what's going on that We're trying to figure out. The process is just happening. It is going on. There is no time needed for it. It just occurs. So we're trying to use time to define moments, which then try and help us piece together a puzzle that's already just going on. See, the ancients used to have words that defined things. And I don't mean things as in that tree had a name. That tree was an environment. That tree was an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it had a name. That it was the thing, was that.
The whole.
You know, we've then gone into Latin terminology and then based term, just call them fucking trees.
It's the fucking tree.
But it's not, you see.
Yeah.
So the equations are written to suit the thing. So if you took the theory of relativity, or you even the theory of the speed of light, and you go and give that to someone that's learning addition, they're not going to know shit.
No.
It's actually irrelevant. So it only works in that field, but that field is theoretical.
Okay, hold on, because Tracy just brought up something that's a really fucking good point. And this goes into the conversation you and I have had about language, right? Tracy said perception, from the Latin perceptio, is the organization, identification, and interpretation of sensory information in order to represent and understand and present information or the environment. Okay, when we define anything, whether it's medical terminology, legal terminology, scientific terminology, i.e. botany, plants, animals, all the words are in Latin. They define it with a Latin terminology. But Latin is a dead language, i.e. it is not spoken outside of the circles of the people now who use those language to define things. Now then you take it and you interpret those things into English. And English is a created language that is, and Ben and I have had this conversation for fucking years, English is a language that was deliberately created to fuck everyone over. Because the definitions are mutable. They are undefined. They are lacking in terminology to actually define certain things.
Yeah,
so
certain aspects,
science,
for sure.
Yeah, so we take science, we take religion, we take law, and we wrap it all up with a dead language to define it. So therefore, no one will actually be able to translate, other than the people who speak those languages. No one can actually translate these words that have become a signpost definition for something. And then they use English to actually spread this information out. Because English is used in science around the world. English is the major language around the world that used to define money, science, medicine.
So, because you just said
very
that,
pink all of a sudden, dude, you're going to need to shift your camera slightly.
because you just said all that stuff, right? See, this is the thing, is when, depending on how you look at it, and depending on what you're looking at, will depend on what you get out of it. So, we just had, what was the word that Tracy put in there? Perception.
Perception.
This is why I keep talking about environment. The word environment, and I just put it all in there, is EN means in. Viron, the word viron is a circuit that's similar to a compass or that of a clock. Ment or mente is mind. In a circuit of mind, or in a mind circuit. That's what the environment is. That's what the word means.
Yeah.
Like, not just a play on things or rah, rah, rah. That's what the word means. So, you know, when you start looking at it, it's like you're in a mind circuit. They've created time based on that mind circuitry. They put a gradical over it, or created a gradical and then put something over it. That being a map, the map of the world. The world map.
And then you set the points with obelisks and various.
Well, I say that stuff was already done, and that they fucking forgot, and they've been trying to fucking work it out since.
No, I'm talking more the modern shit. Do you know what I'm saying? We had a whole
Oh
conversation.
yeah.
Oh fuck
You mean
that.
like the creation of like Rome and the way that like
Exactly. So like the obelisks
so,
and what, and help me. The
monolithic. Yeah.
the ones
Mega,
behind the pyramid on top. Fuck.
Yeah.
Is it obelisks? Okay. Thank you. I'm glad someone could find words for me today. They have these obelisks and they put them in places. And some of them, like we were talking about England, and we were talking about, I think it was last spring, after the gathering last spring, they put them in places that are just fucking bizarre, like in the middle of a field. And they'll assign it like some noteworthy position, i.e. this is where the Battle of Waterloo took place, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's in the middle of a fucking field. And then you have certain things where certain buildings are, and again, you have like an obelisk stuck right smack in the middle of the Vatican, an obelisk stuck right in the middle of where the Washington D.C. is. And I think that those are points that they've made, if you will. They are the I don't want to say circuit, not the transistor. They're the point that kind of
circuitry.
Cements
the
the graticle in place. It becomes like a central node, if you will.
Yeah. They're working they're working on geomancy and radionics. That's what they're working with.
Geomancy and radionics. Now,
Because all then you're doing is you're altering the field of the Earth's magnetics, which is created from the water flow underneath the crust.
Yep.
And then, which is generally where we used to walk. Those were our walking lines. Those were our walking tracks. And that's, every so often you'd have a Stonehenge or a this or a that or the other. But it's like all churches were built either on or right next to original nations' sacred sites. One, for marketing purposes, because they knew that when people congregated, that the native peoples got interested, because they were all like, "Oh, look, they're singing and doing da 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 da." But they either or they massacred them and then took over their sacred site.
Well, we say the same thing about Malta. We have this island, this country. It is the size of a pinhead. On a map, it doesn't even, on most maps, all there is the word. Like, they don't even put a little tiny circle to mark Malta. It's that frickin' small. More churches per capita than any other country in the world. There's 450,000 people who live in this country. They have, I think, 365 churches for 400,000 people. Do the math. Like, that's insane. Now, with the other thing Malta also has the largest amount of temples given the landmass and per capita in the world. So you have massive amount of these ancient Neolithic, megalithic temples, some of them that are in very, very interesting places, and every one of them is surrounded by a church. And the churches here all have the bells that ring out every hour, because we're going to talk about altering frequencies, and you can feel it. You can literally feel it. The bells ring out the time. The bells ring out the time. It's one of the last few places in the world where you can actually tell time by listening to the church bells ringing, because they tell you what time, and they continuously reinforce that time of day on you in 15-minute increments. And the bells are deliberately tuned incorrectly. All of the church bells are not properly tuned, and I've said for years that it is a deliberate thing to disturb, to try and change and warp the natural frequency. Distort, that's the word, sorry.
Totally is.
Distort the natural frequency. Keep you off kilter. Yes, Deb, keeps you off kilter. So you have this little tiny island. and you have the bells that ring all day, and although not so much all at night now, because I think a lot of people have finally complained enough that they no longer ring out 15 minutes on the hour all night long in most villages, but they continuously ring. And I don't find it coincidental. Again, we have this country with this many fucking churches, with this many ancient temples, and they've just uncovered, I dropped a link in the Unfuckers group a few days ago. They just uncovered another whole set of catacombs. And they're hypothesizing that these catacombs that they've just discovered could then connect to a whole bunch of other catacombs. And Francis Alosio and many other people who've talked out, breaking out of the norm, breaking out of the accepted history, have said that the catacombs run under the entire country. And they actually extend to Gozo and Malta, that there are ways, there used to be ways to be able to walk through the catacombs from one island to the other. And the bells just keep ringing, pushing everyone to remember what time it is. Exactly. Bells are a tone and they're a frequency, and you can hear it. And if you're in a really densely populated area of Malta, especially, not so much Gozo because the villages are a little more spread apart, but you go to a place like Sliema or Valletta, where you have multiple churches all close enough, and they start ringing the times, and they are all in a different key. Every one of the bells is just ever so slightly off. So I've got relative pitch. It used to make me absolutely fucking nuts because the sound would literally almost go through and be jarring. The Tower of Babel, and Baal, which is also pronounced Bel, the god Baal, also known as Yahweh, the Tower of Babel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna try and fuck up the bells later on this year when we have the Unfuckers gathering. Oh yeah.
All those stories need to be metaphorical, right? So that, yeah, at this one point they had this place that had all these fucking bells, and the people fucking rose up because they were ringing it at fucking 2 a.m. in the morning, and fucking they burnt the whole rock place to the ground. You know, and if Malta not long ago used to do the bells at night, like for me, I would look at that and I'd say this is still part of a programming thing that is going on, and they've now turned off the night time because it's okay, cool, and there's all these markers. It's just like with what's going on with the First Nations peoples around the world. It's like here in Australia, it's only 200 years, so because these cultures, like since like fucking white English, Dutch, whatever colonizing really started occurring, these people are still fully practicing in places, you know, their customs. So seeing the effects of what white man clock time does, and alcohol and disease and all these things, you're seeing what colonization, like you're seeing it happen now. You know, these guys are the resistance.
They're the rebels.
Yeah. Well, you've got the different bits and pieces. It's like now in most of the westernized worlds, like Australia and America, like I say, here we've got probably more privileges than a lot of westernized places in the world, and that includes like England and America here. Like the way that we're able to, the way that we're able to use like what we call FPOS, and our the ability to withdraw money anywhere from, you know, shops all over the place with just a PIN number. And now we're into the point where, like with Bitcoin, you've got QR codes. It's like your bank gives you a QR code, and from your smartphone you can pay over a machine just in the tellers, right? And from what most of the tourists that come through are like, yeah, we don't have this back at home. Like now we have PayWave, so you've got your bank card and you just hold it up to the machine and it pays. It's got a limit of
Yeah, it's got that in the UK.
$150 set on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, well, when I moved to the UK, we'd already had this sort of system in New Zealand for fucking decades, and the UK was just starting to step out of what they used to have, which was card and sign. So it was like credit. So you used to put your card in, it used to zap it printed out a receipt, you signed it, they checked your fucking signature, and that was the payment. And it would take whatever it was, 21 days to come out of your bank. Like ours is all instant now. Transfer funds online and put it into someone else's bank account, and I've got Whereas we've got lots of sun and a little bit more freer of bits and pieces like that. But at the same time, we've got we had Mardi Gras in Nimbin, and the 4 directions that were that you get into Nimbin all had police stops for drug swabs and alcohol tests. Because Mardi Gras is a law reform protest.
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Siki. But he can't hear me.
Said hello. D said hi. He's like, oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. He's now explaining to me he didn't hear you because I've got the headphones on.
Dad, seriously.
But yeah, there's it seems to me that there are different protocols at play, all for the same purpose. But they're in different flows in different places.
Different areas of testing.
Yeah. I mean, look, New Zealand's just got this new prime minister, and if you've read any of David Hallett's work on New Zealand is
stuff on him. So
it's like New Zealand is a Mossad fucking intelligence agency, basically. All of it's parliamentarians, everyone. But she's just made a decree that she's going to home all the homeless in New Zealand before winter. She's looking at releasing everyone in jail that is on a minor drug charge from jail and making sure that no one else goes in. And this is still before any legislation changes. So you're sitting there and you're like, there's people out there literally going, she's a man, and she's a trained Mossad operative, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you've got stuff that they're talking about, and so you're sort of going, oh, is this an overlay? Has a white hat finally got into power, and is she going to survive for very long?
Or is it a test?
Or is it another buyout?
Another test that'll be the same thing that is what they've been talking about in Canada. But they haven't managed to do.
We'll see if the homing of all the homeless, then all of a sudden they're all put onto these government pay cards. Something like that. And then you're like, oh, yeah, or something like that. But then if you see something like that, then you're like, oh, okay, so where could this pop up next? Because these are all, we are a big social experiment. Yeah. I think we said this in the last show. It's like, as much as they do know, they don't know. As much as they don't know, they probably really, really don't know.
They really don't know.
And they're just watching. And it's like I said, it's like, is Hawaii because the sun's got coronal holes, or is it because 6 years of CERN, the type of energy that they were putting out is now exposing itself, and they've found a new by shooting that stuff through the planet?
Dude, we just lost almost everything you just said. You said, is Hawaii and then we got something about 6 years of CERN and shooting out stuff across the planet. And that's, I don't know about anyone else, but that's all I heard.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, no, apparently Chris is saying that I was frozen and you were the one who was fine. So apparently it's my turn for internet issues.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was just, like I just said there, it's like, is it starting to show itself on the surface after those certain energies have been put in?
Well, and that's where I keep going back to the big question of something was done, something, and we talk about, like in the last discussion, we were talking about, where we are in the universe and whether we got here in a blip of an eye or it's following a path, et cetera, et cetera. Something has been done. I keep going back to that all the time. The question is what was done. And the digitization feels to me to be one of our biggest clues. And Ben is completely frozen now. Or I'm frozen. We're all frozen because it's just a digital something or other. It's all fucking insanity. Going back to what I opened up with the whole welcome to the UnFuckIt discussion. It's all fucking insanity. That's all it is. The be all end all. It's all fucking insane.
Danny, can you hear me?
Yeah, darling.
So I have a theory about Hawaii because so the missile went off, right? And everybody got that text. Where I live, I don't have cell phone service, so actually we didn't get that text.
Okay.
We just kind of heard about it, and then nothing was happening, and we didn't actually hear the sirens here at my house. We have the tsunami sirens you can hear. Well, anyway, we have telescopes on the top of Mauna Kea and Haleakala, and I say telescope, quote unquote, because we don't necessarily think that they're just telescopes. And the energies that you can see coming off the tops of the mountains when something's going on, especially when they've been chemtrail spraying. So I have a theory. When they sent that, or when the missile was going off, or whatever that was, and you heard about everybody's response and reaction in fear, right? In trauma-based, all that, all those words we use. And we have these telescopes, and we have this node point on the planet that's a super high electromagnetic field. What if that's something that they're doing as a node point, just like you're talking about the obelisk and where they are on the planet and how they send those energies and frequencies around.
Yep.
So if we're having those kinds of things going on here, and then we're having the expanse of the earth and everything else, and then the Pele's response to these energies and the shifting of that and the not allowing that to be the way that those energies flow around.
To set. Not allowing it to set into a place, maybe.
Right. Because it's a node point, and we have something to say about it in our, understanding and coming together and looking at all of these little pieces. And I don't know, it's a piece. I've just been thinking about it in that way of what, Hawaii represents. I'm here, so I'm just an observant, and wanted to add that in. So there's so much going on.
No. This is the whole thing. Like, we just don't have answers. We can throw all the stuff on the table and kind of try and shuffle through all the pieces that come to us. Like I said, for me personally, I have so many conversations with so many different people. I like to see what topics come up. And when a topic, i.e. talking about the difference between digital and analog stereos randomly comes up in a conversation, I don't believe in random, like this kind of stuff. And I always think that a lot of these pieces come forward. And Hawaii, there's something there, and it's something for us to take note of. And we may not completely comprehend why or how even, but we take note of it. And I think it's something we have to definitely need to file away, and that is a very big piece that's sitting on the table right now, and we'll figure that out.
Can I add something else that I just thought of?
Yeah.
So as a body worker, I do craniosacral therapy, and I work a lot helping people with those traumas and any traumas. And I work on the vagus nerve a lot in the sense of bringing it back to a more natural way of being in the parasympathetic nervous system, where you're not in fight or flight response all the time. And as a society, we seem to be in a fight or flight response all the time. because of all of these, whatever's being pumped out, right? And that our bodies, in the sense of, you know, scanning our environments, if we're picking up frequencies that are saying, oh, that's harsh, or oh, that, you know, get away from that, and we can't get away from it, we're being pinged all the time in that fight or flight response. And so our vagus nerve goes off continually. And if, as we were saying, that Hawaii is a heart, you know, centered space, and we're pinging that space and the vagus nerve having everything to do with the heart, lungs, and digestion, all that. You know, that's what's happening in our physical bodies. Then we are being pinged all the time. We're constantly having to regulate that, whether we're, you know, good at breathing or meditating or whatever it is we're doing to, you know, our own internal responses to that. And if we're not aware of that, then we don't know. You're constantly in fight or flight. Your body's in that habit.
Yep.
And how do we get out of that habit? How do we become aware? You know, and if it takes a volcano blowing up to, you know, wake people up, maybe that's what it is.
And again, you go back to the whole macro and micro.
Yeah.
Right back to the whole macro and micro that we were talking at the very beginning.
Yep, exactly that.
And Ben said, they have pieces of the puzzle. We are wrapped in programmable matter. It is up to us to integrate the tools presented or to allow them in. What the hell was that? Something just buzzed. That was funny. Yeah. Well, guys, that's it for us for tonight. JC, don't close down the meeting yet. Because, you know, we have to have our chat afterwards. I do not know what I'm going to be doing this weekend. I do not know if there will be a show this coming Sunday or not, because everything is quite literally a clusterfuck and all up in the air, and I just don't know. So, I will get back to you guys, and I'll let you know what is going to happen on Sunday, whether there will be a show or not. And if not, like I said, we'll figure it out. Anyways, regardless. That's it for now. And I will talk to you guys all very, very soon. Bye. Go ahead. Say again, Dawn.
I was going to tell you that my first sales job I ever had, I got hired by Motorola, and that was back in the 80s. And that's when they were moving everything from analog to digital. And so I was tasked with having to go out to all of these companies, a lot of them blue collar companies, but, you know, high dollar, you know, they used analog radios for their communication with their fleets, you know, their you know, different fleets out there. And you talk about pissed off. Oh my God. And I mean, their bill tripled, and they were like, sorry, the tech is going away. So this is what you got. And they were just like, fuck you. So it didn't go down well back then, let me just say.
Well, I can remember when, you know, like all the your TV, cable TV, all started going digital. Like digital cable TV and digital boxes, etc. But you could, in Toronto anyways, you could still, if you had your good old-fashioned pole, you know, the lovely little triangular shaped metal ladder thing up with your big antenna on the top, and you had your TV with its ears, etc. God knows what you invented. We invented some crazy ass shit to get signal. You know what? You still could get analog. And I remember when it was announced, I don't remember when it was, but it wasn't that long ago. Like, it was probably in the last 20 years when all of a sudden they announced that like all analog signal was going away. So basically you no longer had a choice anymore. Now it was you went digital or you had nothing. And they shut down. Was that 2001, 2003? Yeah. Because like I said, it wasn't like the digital had been going for years and years and years, and all of a sudden they announced it. I can remember the people were pissed. It was like, how dare they? Like, we have our signal. We've always done it this way. We have our analog antenna. And now it was just like, nope, gone. Throw it away.
Here in Australia, they've announced that they're going to cut all the main copper wire for phone.
Yeah.
Isolated rural areas, and everything is going like phone. Everything is
Wi-Fi.
going on the 5G network. Everything like home phone. Everything.
Yep. And you're being forced to. Like, you will not have a landline in Australia. In certain areas of Australia, when it rolls out, there will be no more landlines available, even if you wanted to make that choice. Like, I mean, with traveling in the way we have for years. Groot, what is your issue now? Never mind. Stupid dog. Goofball. This is the first home phone I've had since I left Canada. And I keep forgetting I have it. Literally keep forgetting that I have this thing, because you get so used to having this when you're calling people. But a lot of people, like, this is one of those things. There's a lot of people now who are getting pissed off. And I know, like, in Australia, because I've had a few friends in Australia who are just furious at the fact that they're not going to have a home phone anymore. They will only have that.
We're classified as isolated rural.
Yeah, no doubt. No fucking doubt. You only changed over to digital in Ireland in 2012, Anne? Really?
Yeah, they ran the dual system for a while and finally closed off the analog in 2012. So it's quite recent.
Oh,
Huh.
it's only been in the last few years over here. Like, seriously, I think
But
they
they've
started
ramped it up fast. Like, Australia was like,
Well,
they took the changeover and then like went like, let's go at like hyperspeed.
Well, I think the way it worked was, it's actually the way that it sort of got announced. I think Kevin Rudd was the guy who announced, and I can't even remember when he was the Prime Minister. I think it was even before I got to Australia, which is, okay, no. It was about a decade or so ago, decade and a bit. Yeah, 8, 9 years ago, whatever. So anyway, he was like, we're going to put in this fucking NBN. It's going to, fucking smart up Australia. It was supposed to be finished at the end of last year / the start of this year. But then when the Turnbull government got in, they turned around and went, okay, we're redoing it. It's going to take another 4 years and cost twice as much. And they basically announced that on the completion date of the actual previous system. So now with this new Turnbull thing, what they've announced is they're cutting all the copper lines. Everyone's going completely digital, but it's only happened within the last year, easily 5 years, but it's going nationwide. It's a nationwide rollout.
Man.
Whereas New Zealand's pretty much had that kind of technology for a while. Now they're just up to bulldozing a road right through the middle of the whole 2A.
Okay, Tracy just put the definition of analog. This is actually interesting. Describes a device or system that represents changing values as continuously variable physical quantities. Typical analog device is a clock in which the hands move continuously around the face. Such a clock is capable of indicating every possible time of day. In contrast, a digital clock is capable of representing only a finite number of times, every 10th of a second for... Oh, okay. That is fucking interesting considering the conversation we just had. In general, humans experience the world analogically. Vision, for example, is an analog experience because we perceive infinitely smooth gradations of shapes and colors, except we fucking don't anymore. Because now, how many of us are seeing the pixelization?
We can simplify this. We can simplify this.
Go.
Talking about is not analog and digital. What we're talking about is AC versus DC. Alternating current versus
This is direct current. Okay.
And what actually, so what Tesla was using, what Tesla was using is direct current, which is just one continuous. What alternating current is, D, is what? Pulse, pause.
Pause. Okay, I'm gonna have to sit down and talk to Nick, because Nick and I had a major fucking conversation about this a couple of years ago about direct current, and because if I'm not mistaken, that's also how Tesla was doing all the healing technologies as well, was using the direct current, and all those doctors he was working with
current
got thrown under the bus, and they got like their medical licenses pulled, and
And direct current is literally AC versus DC is like if you got a car battery and you put jumper cables onto it, and you held one in one hand and one in the other, and you shock.
Say again.
If I start
held
tapping
one in one hand and one in the other, then I didn't hear what you said.
Current will just go through you. You won't get a pulse. It's just going through. You won't get electrocuted.
Right.
End off the positive and start tapping it on the battery while you're holding it. It'll give you little shocks. Yep. That is alternating current. So what Tesla was using was a fluid, continuous current, uninterrupted. As Tracy just said, uninterrupted flow. And what old mate did, fucking Edison, was they converted it. They freaked everyone out saying that direct current would kill everything, yada, 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 but it won't. It only does it if it has been broken, and then it's trying to find its flow again. But then they created alternating current, which of course loses charges and goes on and off, which we know, electricity converts into what? Magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have this magnetic pulse that's going through our power lines. Like I say, it's a giant harp system. It's what it is. So instead of just being able to be in direct, like you said with the bells, the electricity is literally interrupting the constant current.
Yep. Oh, that's really, really interesting. We may need to have a conversation about that specifically.
Well, it goes back into this shoe thing for me, like this wearing shoes. So we end up with a planet that is supercharged with no way to expel that energy other than through volcanoes and the weather. That's how it diffuses. We are a diffusing unit. We
a grounding unit?
Exchange cards. So what we're like at this, let's say at this time of year, what if this was like hardcore ceremony time and we literally danced the energy out of the planet?
In your bare feet.
But we don't do it anymore. Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's warming up here, so I can now wander around in my bare feet again, which I'm loving. Absolutely loving.
And yes, Deb, that's what I believe they may have been doing with CERN.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to keep notes. I have to go because I got to go put children to bed. All the kids it's midnight, and they're all still awake in the living room watching movies. So I'm going to have to go be the mean mom and say, all of you rotten kids, go to bed.